All right, welcome to part two of the tutorial on how to make your own images from Hubble data. Um, so I did some looking into the different options available to convert things from the FITS file format into something a little bit easier to use. And unfortunately, the main one no longer works on current versions of the Mac operating system, and on Windows, it's still a little clunky. So I think actually our best option here is still to actually do the conversion inside the GIMP program itself, which we're going to do our image manipulation in. So, but I'm going to show you some tips maybe to make that an easier process, because as many of you have found, when you first open these images, you may not even see anything, and it can be a little bit of work to try to actually get something out of it. But there are a few hints maybe that I can provide. So here I have the files that I've unzipped. I downloaded the file, it unzipped into this folder, and then there's this HLA folder. There's a folder for each image. Inside each of these is this long file names, but they end in FITS. Those are the images files. So I've got three different folders, and they each have a FITS file in them. I'm just going to pick the first one, which is my F336 filter image, and I'm just going to open that up with the image manipulation program. And here we go. It's going to give me some options, but none of these are too important. I'm just going to click open. Let me make this full screen. And you can see there's actually three things that opened. The first two up here in the upper left are sort of calibration data, and we're not going to use those today. Some of these show like which pixels are good in the camera. Maybe some pixels aren't good. Anyway, I'm going to close those, and I'm left with this thing that looks blank. But it's not blank. This is where the image of our galaxies actually is. So the thing we need to do is change the levels here. So I'm going to go up to the colors menu and the levels. There's a couple things that we can do here to make it a little easier. One is come up here. There's a couple little options here. There's one that's called adjust levels in linear light, adjust levels perceptually. We want adjust levels perceptually. And we also, there's an option here for a linear histogram or a logarithmic histogram. I'm going to choose logarithmic histogram. That's just about, basically both of those are about making this chart here a bit easier to see and work with. That's why I'm doing it. In fact, I can take this little window here for levels. I can make this much bigger. That'll be handy. But basically what I want to do is my first step is everything looks dark, and that's because what it thinks to be white has much too high a value. So I want to take this white point here, this little white triangle under here, and I'm going to just drag it almost all the way to the left. It's showing me a preview of what's going on here as I do this. And if it's not, then you make sure this little button down here that just says preview is checked, then it'll show you a live preview. And I basically just want to take that white triangle and drive that down, not quite all the way. If I go all the way, I get nothing. If I go down a little too much, it's going to completely turn white. But I want to basically go down until I can start to actually maybe make out something in the image. And don't worry, it's better to go a little to be a little cautious than to go too far. If I go too far, it's gonna be hard to work with later, but I can go all the way down to here. I mean, the whole thing's gray. And we'll clean this much more in the next step, but I'm just trying to get this down to where I can see something in the image. So now I can see there's what looks like static around the edges of the image, and that's pretty much exactly what it is. It's a bit of noise along the edge of the camera. That's fine. But I can also start to see maybe some stuff, some stars or whatever is going on in the image. I can't make out what it is yet, but we'll get there. So I'm going to do that as my first step, and I'm just going to click OK. Because now it's going to sort of reset the levels, and now I can go to and do it again. If I go to colors menu and check levels again, now I get something that I can look at. And in fact, now there's this auto input levels button, and it actually works fairly well now. It wouldn't have worked really well before because it was just too narrow a range, but now that I did that first step, auto input levels works fairly well. I might want to tweak it a bit, but this is actually pretty good. Now this looks pretty nice. The reason I might want to tweak it is, let me zoom in here a bit. I just want to make sure there's two things that I'd really like to have happen. I'd like the background to be actually black, or at least as close to it as I can manage. And I'd like the bright parts of the image to be bright, but not completely washed out. And that can be a little hard to tell in an image like this. But here, I think I might want to nudge that white level up a little bit so that there's a little, not quite washing out the light parts as much. So I can try to drag that white triangle, or I can make little adjustments down here in the lower left or the lower right to the black and the white levels. You can see there's numbers next to them, and if I click these little arrows here, it'll just tweak that a tiny little amount. And maybe I need to, yeah, you can kind of see if I just hold it down for a little bit, it's starting to make some subtle changes. So that's pretty good. That's, and in fact, as I turn it up, mostly making that fuzzy stuff fainter. And so this step is really just as much art as it is science. I'm just trying to sort of highlight things without losing too much information. I'm going to click OK again here. Again, I want to be a little cautious. Better be cautious on this step because I can always just do another step. And I'm going to look at these levels just one more time and see what it looks like. But this might not need any more tweaks because the blacks are black. If I move this too much, it's going to just make the whole thing dark. I'm going to lose stuff there. And here I can maybe do a little bit to kind of maybe brighten it up a bit. You can kind of change the sort of the relative contrast with this middle gray arrow here. Another thing you can try playing with, but I don't want to do too much to this image. Might bring that a little up to the side to just kind of highlight the dim areas a little more relative to the bright areas. So that doesn't look too bad. So I'm going to click OK. So now I've got one image. This is the 336 filter. The filter corresponds to 336 nanometers, which is very blue. Now I just need to do this with my other two images. What I can do here is I can go to File. I want to open them as layers. So I'm going to, that's the one I just opened. I need to go up a directory, go to my 555, and then I'm going to open that. Again, it gives me the options. I'm just going to say, okay, open it up, load everything in. And now it's given me, again, I have these sort of calibration data. Again, I'm going to get rid of these two things. But now here, I zoom back out. It looks black again because now this is my new one as the top layer. On the lower right here, where you may need to adjust your options here so you can see, you want to have a little panel that says that where you can see the layers. Here are the different layers, and there's a little eye icon that shows which ones are visible. Now this one I did before is visible, but it's underneath this one on top, which is almost totally black. So that's why I can't see it. If I turn that off, oh, there it is. What I'm ultimately going to wind up wanting to do is I want to make the layers sort of see-through so that I can see all at once, but that is going to be a later step. Right now, I'm going to still work at a layer at a time. And so I'm going to make sure I've selected this 555 layer, newer one, and I need to just do the same thing with the levels that I did before. So like I said, I can take the levels. First step is really just to ramp this white thing almost all the way down till I can kind of see stuff, maybe not quite that far. And it's better to be a little cautious, but as long as it's not completely white, it should be fine. So I'm going to ramp that way down, click OK. Now the next time I do levels, I should be able to click auto input levels, and again, actually looks pretty great. Look at that. And again, I can kind of tweak it. I'm going to actually click OK on this. Oh, yeah, I'm going to click OK. That looks pretty good. And I'm going to just look at the one more time to see if I want to tweak it any, but colors, levels. Here we go. Just to be consistent, maybe I'll move that gray arrow sort of a little bit to the left to kind of highlight some of the fainter areas, but not much. And I'm going to OK on this. Now that's the 555 one. Again, this was the 336. Here was the 555. Now, one thing I'm noticing, I've got a bit of a gray background on this one, outside the actual camera's image. But that's probably okay. I can deal with that because the actual parts that are in the image that should be black, that are sort of away from the galaxy, are actually black. So I'm probably just going to leave that be. I can always do things to that later if we really want to. So now I'm just going to do this a third time. Open as layers, back up, go back up to the directory, and now I have the 814. That up. And I'm basically just going to do the same thing all over again, where I don't need the calibration info, so I'm going to close those. And again, it's the only layer I can see. The other layers are still there. I can see them on the lower right here. Those layers are still there. They're just not visible because on top is this completely opaque black layer. But again, I'm going to go to colors, levels, and once again, just ramp that white down almost all the way. Click OK. Go to colors levels a second time. Again, if I do auto input levels, that looks pretty nice. Click OK. Be OK with that. And then just a third time in case I want to do any tweaks. I've been tweaking this gray thing down a little bit, but that's basically just optional. I just happen to like the way it looks. So I'm going to do that again here. Click OK, and now I've got the 3 layers the way I want them. So one thing I might want to do is I might want to just save this. Just to make sure I don't lose my data. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to just say save in my documents. The file name's fine. I don't really. I'm just going to save that somewhere so that in case I mess up really badly, I can come back to this. But now I want to turn these 3 layers that are each opaque, and so I can only see the top one. I want to turn those and combine those into a color image. So the first thing I need to do is actually change the image mode here. If I go up to the image menu and there's a mode, so right now it's set up, everything's set up as grayscale. I need to change mode to RGB. You won't see anything yet because I actually haven't told it what colors to use, but that at least allows the possibility of colors. The next thing I want to do is figure out kind of what colors I want to do. I'm going to look at these layers individually first and kind of colorize them, and then I'm going to make them transparent so I can see the combination. But first, I'm going to colorize. So here's the top layer is the 814. That corresponds to 814 nanometers is in the infrared. I could color that, make that whatever color I want, but let's just make it red. So I'm going to come up here to colors. There's a couple different options you could actually do here, but colorize is not a bad one. You can do a colorize, and I can click here to select a color. Different ways of selecting colors, but really I want red. I'm just gonna bright red, very vivid. I'm okay with it. Looks good, looks good. So now that top layer is just this bright vivid red. All right. Now I'm gonna, I don't want to look at that anymore. I want to edit the second layer. So I'm gonna turn that off, that little eye icon, and I need to click here and make sure that second layer is selected so that I'm actually editing it. 555 is right in the middle of the visible range, so I'll just color that green. I'm just gonna go colors, colorize. Let's make this green. I'm gonna use, you can use whichever tool here you want, but I'm just gonna right in the middle of the green. Get a really vivid green. Okay. Okay. And again, so now that layer is green. That's the top layer. Make it visible again. Now I have a green layer. Now I'm going to look at the bottom layer, make sure it's selected down here, visible, and I'm editing it. I'm going to make this one blue. this does actually correspond to blue light. So colors, colorize. I'm going to make it a nice vivid blue here. Whoops. I'm going to use this tool here. I'm going to go right into the middle of the blue and get as bright as I can. A really nice, almost pure blue. Not quite, but okay. Okay. So now I've got all three layers. Now I just need to combine them. So let me make them all visible, but let me, what I need to do is this top layer, instead of, up here there's a mode. That's the mode, that's how it combines layers. I don't want the normal. What I actually want is, oh, what I just clicked. I want addition. So now you'll see, oh, okay, I have the red and the green adding together, and you're seeing it's kind of making yellow, which is kind of what I expect from red. I also got to turn this middle layer to mode addition as well. The bottom layer doesn't have anything underneath it, so it doesn't matter what I do with that. Maybe just for add anything else later, I can add to addition, but that doesn't matter. So now I've got my three colors combined. And it actually looks pretty interesting. Already I get kind of a nice multicolor image. It's a little weird looking, but this is basically what I wanted and what you can try out doing. At this point, it's really just a question of, do I want to try to do some further sort of artistic tweaks to make the color balance a little better? I'm going to zoom in here, but so I could look at this and say, you know what, it looks pretty cool, but it's coming out kind of yellowish in the center, a little bit of an odd greenish. Maybe I want to adjust sort of the relative brightness of some of these colors. But now that I've got them all visible, I can say, okay, I can click the middle, like if I wanted to do something here, I could click that middle green layer and let's say, now I can use some of these other tools. I can just do colors, and I can do like brightness contrast. So what I'm doing here is I'm just adjusting the brightness and contrast for just the green layer. If I turn it down, see, it gets rid of that greenish tinge. If I go down all the way, I'm going to wind up with something that just has red and blue in it, and that's not. If I turn it down just a little bit, kind of gets rid of that greenish tinge, which I didn't really like. If I turn it up, I get awfully green. Gets rid of that greenish tinge kind of nicely. Don't want to lose the green entirely, but and then if I wanted to, I could try messing with the contrast. I don't know if that's going to do a little too much. I think maybe I should have just left that alone. Let me reset these. I can reset to just go back to where I was. I want to fix the contrast, and let me just turn the brightness down. But here I'm really going by eye here. But that looks kind of nice. Zoom out a little bit. And I could do the same for the red and the blue. Maybe adjust the contrast in the red, I'm not sure. But I actually like the look of these. These are, looks like clouds of dust in these galaxies. I actually kind of like the look of that there. So I don't want to mess with that too much. But I could select the red layer, go to colors, and just do brightness contrast again. Now I'm adjusting the brightness and the contrast of the red layer. Let's see what happens if I turn the brightness down. And it just turns sort of green again. So let me reset. What about the contrast? That's a little too much. Turn it down, it fuzzes out a bit. I might actually like it. Contrast turned down a little bit. Not too much. I don't want to sort of fuzz everything out, but kind of nice. Finally, if I want to, I could play with the blue layer. Let's just see what it does. I really don't like turning the brightness down. I could actually make it brighter. I think actually it might look a little nicer if I do make it a little brighter. Maybe turning up the contrast, yeah, that clears up some of that hate. That quite nice. Turning up the brightness and contrast a little, kind of like that. So Depending on what object you pick, I mean, I think I lucked out a bit here. I got a very nice looking object, so it's almost kind of easy to make a nice looking image. But you can find nebula and other things, and if you pick sort of filters that are looking at very different aspects of it, you should really see some detail here. And there's lots of other things I could do in this program as well. I could rotate this, crop it out so I don't have this distracting background and these annoying fuzzy bits. I could further manipulate it to make it look a little nicer. That's entirely optional. If you are interested in that, you can do that. Go through that, maybe some of that. But like if I want to rotate it, I can do image, transform, arbitrary rotation. And it's going to give me a tool here. And I can change the angle. Actually see this. Rotate. I'm going to rotate it. Rotate it about that much. Let me see if I can get it close to vertical. That looks good, so I'm going to click rotate. It's going to think for a bit. And then if I want to, I can kind of crop out these horrible borders. So I'm going to draw over here. I have a selection tool. So here I have a rectangular selection tool. I'm going to take this, get that, and actually I want to shrink down the top a little bit to clip off those edges. I'm just gonna clip off a tiny bit of the edges. I'm gonna do that, select that, and then I'm going to go up here to image, crop to selection. So now that looks a little bit nicer. I've still got this kind of stuff up here. Could do something about that too if I want. I could just blank it out, might be the best thing. So if I wanted to, I could draw some rectangles here on top of those, and then what I could do is go to edit, clear. That'll clear the selection box. That just is going to wipe out in there. Then I'm going to draw another box just to get those fuzzy pixels there, and I don't want to lose too much here, so let me shrink that down here. And again, I'm going to go to edit, clear that out. Just click over here to get rid of the selection. And that looks fairly nice now. Zoom in. This particular instrument on Hubble was actually 4 cameras stitched together. One of them has a bit of a zoom relative to the others, so that's why there's this sort of little square here. This L shape with a little bit of a square in it. This is a 4th camera that has a bit higher resolution. But, and one consequence of that is you can kind of tell where the edge of the camera is, where it goes from one to the others. There's a little bit of a seam there. That's okay. That's pretty typical in these images. I could try to smooth that out if I really wanted to, but I'm okay with that, leaving it like it is. And I can move around here and look. And you know what? I'm happy with this. So I'm going to go up here to File, and now I want to export as. So I'm going to save this as antennae galaxy, and I'm going to save it as a JPEG. So I'm going to type antennae.jpg, click export. Sure, I click it there. There we go. Ask me for some options. Those are all good options. That's fine. Click export, and now I exported it. So there it is. And so let me save this again, save this actual sort of image manipulation file. Save this so that I can come back to it if I want to, but I'm going to quit out of this. And now here's where I just saved my image in that same directory. And if I open it up, I get a nice JPEG. Here it just put kind of a blue color in the background for some reason. Don't worry about it. And that's it. Now I have a JPEG, and I can email it and show it to all my friends, or just make it my desktop, or whatever I like. Pretty cool. All right. Thanks for watching.